As the power tussle between Delhi Chief Minister and Lieutenant Governor Najeeb Jung intensifies, bureaucrats at various levels are finding it difficult to discharge their duties. According to an exclusive Mail Today report, at least 20 senior officers are lobbying to get out of Delhi administration. The officers are seeking central deputation or assignments in other states. According to a senior officer, the political leadership is being harsh on the bureaucracy and lowering the morale of officers. The Kejriwal-Jung tussle has scared the officers to the extent that even those currently posted outside the capital are reluctant to join the Delhi government. Senior officials claim that this will have a direct bearing on governance in Delhi, as the officers will hesitate in taking decisions. A Delhi government officer said no concrete work had been undertaken during the 3-month rule of Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi. The bureaucratic heads of almost all major departments, including those related to revenue departments, have been targeted by the government in the recent past. This will affect the financial health of the government, as it will slow down infrastructural growth, officials pointed out. Not just this, the bureaucrats in Delhi administration are not very happy with Kejriwal's working style. Government sources said that some senior IAS officers have been put on compulsory wait and not given postings. We have Jugal Purohit joining us. Jugal, you mentioned this report very briefly in your earlier broadcast. This actually is the Mail Today edition that I hold in my hand. That's the story that we will in fact be tracking through the course of the day. That's what we are getting at this moment. So if the camera actually zooms in, you can see that Kejri-Jung war is expected or could in fact trigger a Babu exodus. At least 20 people, 20 top officers have approached the Ministry of Home Affairs for transfers. That's the story that we are getting you at this moment. Jugal Purohit is with us. Jugal, it's unfortunate because on one hand you have the Lieutenant Governor throwing the rule book that, look, by rules I am right. On the other hand, you have Arvind Kejriwal who says, I have 67 MLAs, I am an elected representative, and being the Chief Minister, this is what is my right and I shall do it. There is an obvious confrontation, there is an ego clash, a personality war happening in Delhi. Amidst all this, what is really suffering is, number one, development, and number two, people who are actually supposed to implement, the babus, the bureaucrats, are saying, we don't want to work anymore.
Absolutely, Sanket. In fact, the entire story that we've been reporting since the last 3 to 4 days may perhaps not hold much traction for people because it largely concerns sections of the Constitution and different acts. Often, it's something in which, the legal part of it is extremely heavy and perhaps not too much of understanding to people. But this is what is of impact and importance to the people. This is our Mail Today, sister publication of Mail Today, makes it very, very clear that the Babu exodus is likely to be triggered. What does this mean is what the viewer might be thinking. This obviously means that all the agenda for reforms, for change, the tall promises that the Arvind Kejriwal-led Aam Aadmi Party had made in the run-up to the elections, they may all fall flat because it's not the politician who actually goes about implementing. He only gives the directions, and it's the bureaucracy, it's the administration, the infrastructure, which is what makes the schemes into reality. And that's what seems to be now in jeopardy with this ugly spat between the Lieutenant Governor on one side and the Aam Aadmi Party on the other side. Remember, if this were to be so common, then why is the question in people's minds? Have we not seen this kind of a spat in all these years? We had Sheila Dikshit on record. She spoke about how she, even though would have differences with the LG, but would get it sorted out in private rather than make a spectacle of it. Yesterday, interestingly, Sanket, Amitabh Kant, who's now in the Department of Industrial Promotion in the center, tweeted that thank God I'm not a part of the Delhi administration. It's only going to build more and more of a pressure for these two warring factions to unite, to sit together and talk, because if they don't, then at stake is the development, reform and the change that Delhi sought by voting Aam Aadmi Party.
It's interesting what you mentioned, Jugal, and let me get in Javed here. Javed, why should it concern to the Aam Aadmi or you and me about a bureaucratic reshuffle, about the fact that this bureaucrat was posted at this position, was later lobbying or someone else was lobbying for some other bureaucrat. At the bottom of it all is that it affects people in Delhi directly. Work is not going to happen if all that is going to happen in the Delhi administration is a tussle, a power struggle.
Sanket, there is a sense of great uncertainty, and you cannot blame the bureaucrats for feeling insecure because they are hemmed in from both sides. The bureaucrats, by the very definition of their job, need to follow the rule book, need to take orders and implement orders from those in authority. It's very in this tussle between the LG and Arvind Kejriwal have been caught the bureaucrats. Mr. Kejriwal, of course, sticking out his spite by shunting out people, by locking the door on people. So under these circumstances, it's understandable why most top bureaucrats wouldn't want to function in a situation like this.
And interestingly, Javed, the story that you actually got us yesterday, which we are reporting even today, and we'll put that up on the screen in just a short moment from now, is the fact that this is pretty much an afterthought. This whole, war-like situation with the Lieutenant Governor could perhaps be, all of an afterthought. Something that perhaps is upsetting the bureaucrats even more. The fact that initially you agree to an appointment, you say we are fine, and then later you have a rethink.
Sanket, they didn't agree. They are the ones who proposed it.
Absolutely.
The noting on the file is very clear. Mr. Sisodia says, either you have Parimal Rai or Ms. Gamlin. I would prefer Ms. Parimal Rai, and the Chief Minister concurs, says he notes on the file, I agree. So it's certainly, and I think there is a larger game plan to this. The game plan is that they want to be seen as they want to don this mantle of victimhood, seen to be, smarting under the onslaught of the central government. They want to make this a center versus state a much bigger fight. They want full statehood. So whether it's the question of appointment of police officers or bureaucrats or whatever, on every issue Mr. Kejriwal is agitating, the Aam Aadmi Party is making an issue out of it, just to buttress that larger point that you should grant us full powers. We have 67 MLAs, yet we are hamstrung. We are being made to function with our hands tied behind our back. Give us full statehood, give us full powers. That's the game plan.
Absolutely, Javed. Do stay on with us. In fact, as the face of snowballs, let's listen into an extract from Aam Aadmi Party leader H.S. Phulka's conversation with Gaurav Sawant in last night's edition of News Today at 9.
And I have been clearly told that the Delhi government had recommended also the name of the Principal Secretary Finance. The Principal Secretary Finance, the Lieutenant Governor had not agreed. Then the Lieutenant Governor was conveyed because the notings is prepared by the officers below and they are sent to the Minister. And on that, the Lieutenant Governor was informed that against Mrs. Gamlin, there are few allegations that she lobbied for the DISCOMs.
Now, that's really, Javed, the bigger problem. No, we saw that noting, and we'll put that noting right now on the screen. We'll remove this loop that is running of Mail Today. This is, of course, the big story that we are getting you of how 20 officers have now approached the Ministry of Home Affairs, and they have said that we don't want to work in the Delhi government. This is the piece of information that Javed actually got us yesterday, where Manish Sisodia has signed, and he says in point number 4, we may choose from amongst Miss Gamlin or Pramod Rai. I propose Mr. Parimal Rai. He said between Ms. Gamlin and Mr. Parimal Rai, I propose Mr. Parimal Rai, undersigned Manish Sisodia, the Deputy Chief Minister, and his signature. Now Mr. Phulka, Javed, comes out and says this note has been prepared by some junior babu. What is this whole thing about Manish Sisodia involvement with it?
You see, Mr. Phulka is a very seasoned lawyer, but even lawyers, when they argue, when they are weak on facts, they cut a sorry figure. That was entirely true of Mr. Phulka last night. The one question, there's only one question that I want the Aam Aadmi, Mr. Sisodia, Mr. Kejriwal and the others to answer is, what changed between the 13th of May and the 15th? That suddenly overnight they discovered that Miss Gamlin was, she had indulged in wrongdoing, that there was lots that was wrong, that she was not suitable for the job. Did they not do due diligence earlier? She couldn't have overnight turned from a paragon of virtue into the devil incarnate suddenly. What went wrong? Certainly there is more to it than meets the eye. This to my mind is a clear afterthought. They are working to a larger design, and that larger design is rail against the center, make it a center versus state issue, ask keep buttressing that larger demand of full statehood.
Absolutely. And something very interesting that I chanced upon at this moment, where Dr. Kumar Vishwas, who's a senior Aam Aadmi Party leader, has now sent out this tweet. Very recently he sent out this tweet quoting a newspaper write-up on the Delhi Chief Secretary Rao, where he says, Ajeeb Jung hai. Now, who has started this Ajeeb Jung? Who is supposed to answer about this Ajeeb Jung? Will Dr. Kumar Vishwas like to come on Headlines today and perhaps clarify how can Delhiites who have actually voted the Aam Aadmi Party can actually expect some work and not an Ajeeb Jung tweet? So it will be interesting to hear from Mr. Kumar Vishwas in just a short moment from now. We'll be continuously tracking all the latest developments as far as this story is concerned. Remember, the third part of the story is that the Delhi government may be considering a legal recourse in its ongoing tussle with the Lieutenant Governor and the centre. Now, senior Supreme Court lawyer Rajiv Dhawan has submitted a 3-page legal opinion to the Delhi government saying its case against the LG is a strong one. In his opinion, the crisis has been created entirely by the Lieutenant Governor, he says. Dhawan also says that it is clear that the Lieutenant Governor has, quote-unquote, exceeded his authority and has turned the entire relationship between himself and the Council of Ministers on its head to jeopardize democracy and the Constitution. That seems to be the position of the legal voice of the Aam Aadmi Party, Rajiv Dhawan.